Hello Suzuki parents. In this video, I'm going to read to you the foreword and the information at the beginning of Suzuki Book 1 because everybody needs to read it. However, sometimes listening is a little bit easier on a busy parent schedule than sitting down to actually read it. You can listen to this while doing other things. Alright, so the subtitles here are the foreword. We're going to talk about the 5 conditions for ability development, study points, lessons at the studio, practice at home, tuning, and maintenance. Alright, so this is from the revised edition. There is a international edition, and my understanding is that the foreword is different in the international edition from the foreword in the revised edition. The revised edition, the one that I'm reading from, the foreword is from Dr. Shinichi Suzuki. I believe they probably updated it to have more current language, and then also it is very difficult to translate an idea from one language to another sometimes, so I think the essence may not translate well, and it might be hard for Westerners to understand some of the philosophy, some of the ideas that Dr. Suzuki was talking about here. So it says foreword. The destiny of a child is in his parents' hands. As I read through this, I'm going to give a little more updated interpretation. So it's not simply the parents. I would say the destiny of a child is in the community's hands. It takes a village. If children were born with everything that they needed, all skills in life to survive on their own, they would not have parents and they would not have teachers or other wise adults in their community. Education begins the day a child is born. An infant's body grows day by day. Its powerful life force absorbs all the stimuli it receives externally, developing in the process of acquiring ability. Without stimulus to the life force, there will be no development in the child. Under conditions of neglect, nothing and no one can grow. So we're talking about a nurture versus nature aspect here. Suzuki method is much more on the nurturing than the nature. Essentially, children are sponges and they absorb everything from their environment. So if you want your child to learn how to play well, they need a qualified, excellent teacher. They need to listen to the recordings. It needs to be part of their environment. Children that live in a household where certain words are used will repeat those words. If you roll your eyes every time you slice a banana, your child will learn to do the same behaviors. That's essentially what Dr. Suzuki is saying here. So being mindful of that, we will want to give the child the best environment that we possibly can to nurture or cultivate certain aspects in their playing ability as well as their character development. Next paragraph. For more than 40 years of experimental pedagogy, I have come to know without a doubt that ability is not inborn. Please raise your child to be a fine human being. Heart and ability depend entirely on the manner of nurturing. Everyone knows how important it is to cultivate seedlings with care, yet some parents are inattentive and indifferent to their child's development. Without exerting any effort, they resign themselves to the thought that my child was born this way. I hope you will not repeat this lamentable mistake from past eras of human civilization. Okay, so first of all, my child was born this way. In that, he doesn't mean in a genetic way, he means in their behavior. So my child behaves this way, that's just how they are. I'm not going to try to encourage them to have more skillful behavior. Your child probably was not born wanting to practice or brush their teeth. Obviously, they didn't have teeth in the beginning, but you understand what I'm saying. Your toddler doesn't understand why they cannot cross the road without you. So are we going to leave it to, oh, that's just how they behave, I can't do anything about it, versus trying to give them the skills that they need to be successful and survive. So that's what Dr. Suzuki is saying here. Let's see what else. Oh, and 40 years. So the Suzuki method came to the United States in the 50s and 60s. It has been around for more than 40 years then, obviously, and Dr. Suzuki began cultivating some of his ideas in the 20s, but really it took off and he formed the modern version of it during World War II and shortly thereafter, and then it came over to the US. Was there anything else that I wanted to add to that? At the time that Dr. Suzuki was developing his method, there were huge advancements in understanding children as children, not being little mini adults, that children are different, they learn differently, their brains are different than adults. So there were big, large strides in child psychology, educational psychology, that Dr. Suzuki was part of, and undoubtedly had influence on his method. So he was very much influenced by, you might know, Maria Montessori. So that's kind of what's happening here by what he means as far as being inattentive and indifferent to children, just not really thinking about the fact that there are differences there between the way children learn and the way adults learn. Please consider the fact that your child is developing the ability to speak with complete ease, and that children the world over develop the wondrous ability to master their own native language. Does not every child develop marvelous abilities? Similarly, any child properly nurtured will develop abilities in other areas besides language acquisition. For my research of the pedagogical methodology of mother tongue acquisition, I have created an educational approach known as the Suzuki method. I should wear my glasses. Just as every child has the potential to develop tremendous abilities in the mastery of his mother tongue, each child has been imbued with the potential to develop musical abilities. Please do not fail to nurture your child. It is a mistake to think that your child's future is only a matter of heredity or inborn qualities. In response to the skill and ingenuity of the nurturer, any child can be fostered to achieve a high level of ability. So here he's talking about the idea of the mother tongue method, that children learn to speak their native language with ease. We don't have exercises from the time they're babies, and we encourage them rather than scold them for making mistakes. And we do that by just simply saying the word again. So in the very beginning, parents will often say mama or dada or sister or brother, their names, the names of family members and that sort of thing. And through this repetition, the child picks it up. They've heard it so many times. And that's where the Suzuki method comes from. So if your child makes a mistake with grammar or pronouncing a word, parents will just simply repeat the word. And then eventually a child learns the correct way, the skillful way of doing something. So that's what we're talking about here. And as far as ability, what we're saying is that a child has the ability to master music in the same way or at the same level as their ability to speak their native language. So there are very few people that cannot at least speak their native language. Reading and writing is a different thing. And so if you have a situation where a person is unable to speak their native language, it may be a little bit more different or difficult to learn. The expectation will be different. So a quote that you often hear about this is, it's attributed to Einstein, but it's not Einstein. We're not sure where it comes from. That everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. So that's what we're doing. We're saying that when it comes to expectations and how far a child can go, that expectation is according to the child's ability and to what the child needs. So if a child is on this level of playing currently, then my expectation is just slightly above it. And then once they reach that level, then we go a little bit higher. Versus traditional education systems where it's a one-size-fits-all. We're not considering what the child's individual ability is or what their personal needs are, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, etc. Those are not taken into context or consideration. Instead, it's a one-size-fits-all. So the child may be here and a productive level of expectation will be a little bit higher. But in a one-size-fits-all traditional model, we're saying the expectation is here, and all children need to reach that, and if they don't, that's their own fault. And not taking into consideration other things that may be going on, and adjusting the level of expectation according to those needs and abilities. Okay, so we approach things differently for children that have different learning abilities, learning differences. In fact, the Suzuki method does attract a lot of children that have learning differences, that are dyslexic. I have worked with children who are autistic as well as having traumatic brain injuries. And we don't turn them away and say you cannot learn how to play an instrument. We adjust our expectations according to their ability and what they need. So that's what we're saying here. There's no genetic test or marker that makes one superior than another, or that defines one as having more musical ability than another. These things are nurtured and cultivated through the environment. And actually there are a lot of improvements coming along with the way that we can do the 3D printing and creating prosthetics for people that have physical differences, to be able to allow them to have prosthesis that actually work for what the physical demands of playing instruments. So we are bridging that gap as well. And Suzuki teachers are quite creative and flexible in taking what a child needs and developing a plan to meet that ability, instead of having a certain lesson structure, a lesson plan that is just how it's going to go, and if you can't meet it, then there's something wrong with you versus something wrong with the plan. Last paragraph here. Children will grow according to this law of ability. Everything depends on the method of nurturing. The same method may yield different outcomes in different children. Every child has the potential to develop ability in any field, at least to the level of his ability to master his mother tongue. Every child is a wonderful creature, a precious being. Please give your child the opportunity to be nurtured, and please explore the best ways to nurture them. It says him, I'm changing it to them. And that is words from Dr. Suzuki himself, translated. And then I believe I covered the explanation for this last paragraph there. Okay, so again, I don't know what the international foreword reads, but I would imagine it would be a little more updated, a better explanation of the essence of what Dr. Suzuki is trying to say. For the rest of this, I'm just going to read straight through. So the 5 conditions for ability development. 1, an early start. 2, a superior environment. 3, a commitment to practice. 4, a superior instructor. 5, a thorough teaching method. Next up is study points. Every book level has a set of study points. These are the main overall big picture items that we're looking for. 1, nurturing superior musical sensitivity. Provide your child with the opportunity to listen as much as possible every day to the companion CD of pieces he will learn. When the students are familiar with pieces before they study them, they are in essence developing internal abilities. This is the best method for fostering motivation. Once motivation is in place, your child will practice with enjoyment and develop nicely. The violin is a medium for cultivating human character, ability, and heart. 2, tonalization. Vocalists practice a pedagogical exercise called vocalization in order to nurture beautiful, refined voices. Their lessons start with vocalization exercises to develop quality and power in their singing voices. With instrumentalists as well, it is vital for teachers to lead their students in tonalization exercises at each lesson. At home, too, students ought to practice for tone so that they develop ever finer ability. 3, developing a balanced posture. Always strive for accurate intonation, a balanced posture, and a natural bow hold. 4, creating motivation. Parents and teachers alike must foster the child's motivation so that he will practice with enjoyment and goodwill. Next section, lessons at the studio, individual lessons. Just because a child has learned to play a piece with a solid technique doesn't necessarily mean that he should progress to the next piece. This is because he can still improve. We must tell the child, now that you can play the piece, let's get to what's important. We're going to work on expanding your ability. This means improving tone, posture, rhythm, and musical sensitivity. Another important point is that when a child has mastered piece A, and has been assigned to the next piece B, he must not stop practicing piece A. Instead, the child should practice both pieces A and B. The child develops his ability even further by continuing to review old pieces whenever a new piece is added. The length and timing of a lesson may vary depending on the child's level of concentration. Additionally, it is essential for parents and children to regularly observe other children's individual lessons. Two things real quick. Exercises. If we have little mini exercises that help bridge the gap or help introduce a new concept, those usually are dropped after the exercise is mastered because we will use that technique or skill in the piece. So exercises are not reviewed and repeated in the same manner that repertoire is. And observing lessons at the time of this, we're still in the COVID pandemic, so observation of other lessons has not occurred, but that is normal. In a Suzuki studio to observe lessons before you begin and to watch the lessons of other families and other children. Group classes. In group classes, the student plays together with other students using the repertoire he has learned. These are very enjoyable sessions. Because the student will hear and play with more advanced students than himself, his own playing will improve greatly. Group lessons are as important pedagogically as individual lessons to reinforce technical and musical development and to solidify memory of the repertoire. Yes, equal weight on private lesson or individual lesson, because it's not always private because someone may be observing. And then group class, equal weight. They're both equally important. To traditional education or Western thinking, the private lesson is more important than the group class. A lot of people skip out on group class. However, they have the same weight. Practice at home. It is the daily practice at home that leads to ability development. The key is how much and how well the student practices the teacher's instructions. It is crucial that parents understand how to guide their children's hearts and provide a motivating environment without anger or negative criticism. When it comes to mother tongue education, all children grow up immersed in the joy of speaking their native language. Not one child quits midway out of frustration or boredom. The Suzuki method borrows its fundamental pedagogical principles from those of the mother tongue education. Tuning. Tuning is the foundation of performance. Always tune your strings because it is central to the proper cultivation of accurate pitch and tonal sensitivity. Among the tuning devices available on the market is an electronic tuner that measures levels of pitch with a meter. Once you have acquired the capacity to hear pitches accurately, it is fine to tune your strings to a properly tuned piano or to other electronic and handheld tuning devices, but in the beginning it is simplest to utilize a device equipped with a meter. In order to facilitate tuning on smaller violins, it is necessary to attach fine tuners to each string. Some tail pieces have fine tuners built into them. E strings, regardless of the size of the violin, are equipped with fine tuners. For tuning at the beginning level, note: initial tuning should be the responsibility of the teacher or at home by the parent as instructed by the teacher. First, pluck and tune the A string, then tune D, G, and E strings. Recheck the A string, since it is sometimes affected by adjustments to other strings. Repeat these steps until all of the strings are in tune. Always tune all 4 strings. When tuning with the pegs, push them slightly inward first so that they will stay in place. However, if you push the pegs too hard, they will get stuck. It should be noted that temperature and humidity can affect the movement of pegs. If the pegs are unresponsive, it helps to apply a product such as peg compound available from violin dealers to them. When the pegs pose difficulties regardless of the climate, they must be repaired. For the delicate adjustments required to tune a smaller violin, use the fine tuners. Using the fine tuners is also appropriate on instruments of any size when a minute change of pitch is all that is necessary. The position and angle of the bridge is also important. A contorted bridge makes tuning difficult and muffles the tone. There are many types of strings. Find 4 well-balanced strings that fit your instrument. Once a student is able to tune his own instrument, he should begin by carefully tuning the A string and then tune the other strings, playing 2 strings at a time to achieve perfect fits. A couple of notes about tuning. First, yes, it is the parent's responsibility to tune the instrument every time before you practice. I will take care of strings and getting the appropriate strings for you, so you do not have to worry about that. If you have technical difficulties or physical difficulties as far as the instrument having an issue, I will fix them if I can. So you don't need to do this whole peg compound thing and adjusting the bridge. I will do that. Children will not learn how to tune until they have, it is almost at the end of book 1. So we're talking about 2 years of playing before they will have the physical demands and technical tone demands needed to tune their own instruments. It says pluck the strings. We actually want to use the bow because when you pluck the string, the sound decays faster, so it actually falls a little flat, so you don't actually get appropriate intonation. I will teach parents how to tune. Parents should observe how I'm tuning in the lesson. However, it is most effective if I give you a lesson on teaching outside of your child's lesson, so that we can really focus on what we're doing without the distraction or interruption of the child. So you can set that up with me. I hold tuning classes every so often. It's part of your tuition. It doesn't cost any extra. If that time's not good for you, then we'll arrange some other time for you to come in so I can teach you. I also have several videos on tuning, so you can check those out first. If that's not going to help you whatsoever, then come in and let's teach you how to tune. It is so important to the development of your child's ear and intonation. So if your child plays on the violin that's out of tune constantly, if the A is always too flat or too sharp, too high or too low, then all of the pitch that they're playing with their fingers will be relatively out of tune. So they'll all be too high, they'll all be too low. And so they will hear things out of tune and they'll play out of tune. And once that is established, it's very difficult to undo. So I cannot stress the importance of tuning your child's instrument every time they play. The number one reason why this doesn't happen is because parents don't realize it's their responsibility. Number 2, they don't know how to tune. Every time. It has to be in tune every time before we play. Okay, and I will help you with that. Last section, maintenance, violin. The violin is very sensitive to changes in the environment. One might say that the conditions optimal for human comfort are equally desirable for violins. Be especially careful to avoid extreme temperatures and excessive humidity or dryness. For example, leaving the violin inside the car in the summer or winter is in an extremely humid or arid location or in direct sunlight. Simply put, if you're physically uncomfortable in the environment, temperature, humidity, the violin is uncomfortable. 2, do not leave your instrument in the car. 1, it may be stolen. Your car may be damaged in the process of it being stolen. 2, the environment will cause damage to the instrument. And depending on how bad it is and your situation, whether you're renting it or not, or if you have purchased it, it will be up to you to repair the violin. And those repairs, for example, if you leave it in the car, it will crack in the winter, the wood will crack, and in the summer, the glue that holds it together will melt, so the varnish will melt. These are extremely expensive repairs. Do not leave your instrument in the car. After practicing the violin, use a piece of soft fabric without chemical treatment to clean off all traces of rosin and sweat. Also remove any rosin from the strings. Rosin is corrosive. It will eat away at the strings as well as the varnish on the violin. So we need to take it off. To ensure good tone quality and accurate intonation, change the strings at least twice yearly. Change only 1 string at a time. Sometimes a string may break while you are playing, so it is advisable to keep an extra set on hand. Yes. I will change your strings twice a year. We have a violin spa day where you can choose a time. It does take about 15 minutes to 30 minutes to change strings and to polish the instrument, so I like to do it outside of the lesson. If you're unavailable for that spa day, then we will take your lesson time to do that. So again, I will take care of getting the strings, so you don't have to worry about that. I will change them. We do need to do it twice a year. And then keeping extra strings on hand is also a good idea in case they break. They will break. After repeated tuning of the strings, the bridge may start to lean. It is therefore necessary to correct the angle of the bridge and to make sure that its feet are flat on the violin. I will take care of that. Whenever the violin is stored for an extended period of time, the tension of the string should be released slightly. Generally speaking, we don't need to store our instruments away, but if you do travel and you take your instrument with you by air, you do need to take it with you. Do not check it. It does go with you on the plane. And if you're a little worried about it, you can release the tension on the strings before you fly. You will just have to tune it when you land. Bow. The bow requires the same attention to environmental conditions as the violin. Before using the bow, tighten the bow hair by using the screw and apply rosin to the entire length of the bow hair. Be careful not to knock the rosin against the frog or the silver part, the ferrule or ferrule, tomato, or the rosin will crack. Depending on the kind of rosin, particularly with the softer type, you must be careful not to let it melt in high temperatures. Again, do not leave your instrument in the car. In the summer, your rosin will melt. Wipe off any rosin and sweat from the bow stick after you have played. Unwind the screw lightly to loosen the hair, but only to the point where the hair is still evenly distributed over the string or over the stick. Have the bow rehaired whenever the hair wears out. Be careful not to touch the hair. A bow rehair usually for beginners is necessary at least once a year. Intermediate and advanced students at least twice a year, up to every 3 months. A bow rehair costs about $50 or $60. And when that needs to happen, we will have more conversations about that. So, all right, parents, that would be the information in the front of the book, which is so helpful, which you can now appreciate, and listening to it can be a little bit more convenient for busy parents. So I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions, and as always, thanks for watching.